Welcome in Cannabiz Conversations. I cannot believe we're already in season 4, but I can tell you I am happy we are. I'm loving what we're doing here. I'm loving having great conversations with industry people. That's obviously going to be the case today. If you don't know my guest, by the time today is over, you will know my guest. And if you're not following him, you should be following him on LinkedIn. That's where we find all of our great guests. But at the end of the day, let's first start by thanking Green Lane Communication for all that they do for our season. They are powering us over there. They're a public relations machine in cannabis. If you're not familiar with who they are, I suggest you head to greenlanecommunication.com, learn about them. If you don't know who Michael Meyer is, you're doing yourself a disservice. This may be one of the most genuine human beings I've ever come across in business. Remember, I'm not just talking cannabis, we're talking business. Michael and his team are absolutely unbelievable. If you don't know them, go find them, greenlanecommunication.com. Thank you to them. Let's get into today's guest here for episode 3 of our new season, Kevin Hart, CEO of GreenCheck. Kevin, how are you today?
Great, Sean. The pleasure, and I echo everything you said about Michael and his team. Green Lane is awesome.
They are next level when it comes to PR. And again, his approach is just he's so cool. You know, he's just the kind of guy you want on your back when things go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
I love it. All right. So I like to ask folks who aren't necessarily cannabis users, which, by the way, as I've said before on this show, I don't think has anything to do with people being in the cannabis industry. I don't think it means anything. But I do wonder, why choose the cannabis industry, Kevin, for your business venture?
Well, GreenCheck, the foundation of it, really, we started with, how would high growth businesses work within financial and business services? And so that means they need high trust systems. And so, we all know the horror stories, and they're still out there, but a little lesser, about how people in cannabis couldn't get banking accounts, can't get loans, just, they have a hard time finding payroll providers, insurance, and everything else. And so I was approached to build a point of sale system for the cannabis industry, part of my enterprise software background of 40 plus years. And, the more I found out about the cannabis industry, the cannabis industry doesn't need and did not need even then, 8 years ago, another point of sale system. Okay. What they needed was a facilitation, a single system from a design and vision standpoint and platform that was going to connect them from a demand perspective into the supply of people who are willing to service them as normal businesses, as normal as you could, put the rules and regulations aside, and be able to provide them the sort of products and support that they needed, specifically banking, lending, and then how does that radiate out? And so, that is the foundation of GreenCheck. And after doing a lot of field work and talking to people and understanding the problem, that's when we shifted and we moved the whole concept of, all right, we're going to build a better point of sale system for the cannabis industry. We're going to build a compliance framework to service high-risk industries. Cannabis was the first one.
So the financial part of it's interesting, right? Because I've been in cannabis for 20 years, I guess, at this point, and in the background, and so I started. It was a website company called Green Biz Done Better, and so I had a regular bank account, Kevin. Mm-hmm. I put the bank account at Chase Bank. I did everything with Chase Bank. Nothing was ever different about my experience. So when things started to go legal and people were freaking out about all this cash and all these things, I thought, well, yeah, I've just been using a bank. Now, maybe it's because I was in marketing services and wasn't specific, but we funneled all of our caregiver fund. Like, we did everything through that name, and we never ran into issue, right? Can you tell me right now,
Sean, you're freezing, man. I don't know.
All right, look, technology is never always our friends, but we got to try to make it that way. Kevin, as we sit here today and we talk about cannabis banking, is it as bad as people make it sound? Is there still no one willing to work with the cannabis industry, or is it because they don't have a marketplace similar to what it sounds like you're trying to design or aren't aware of to go find these opportunities?
It's not as bad as people describe it. I mean, it certainly was bad. We all know the horror stories, and you still hear about certain accounts getting shut down. But I think that's from a lot of folks being um, not not trying to be cute, but less than forthright in what they're doing. So I mean, we have over 180 different financial institutions that we work with that serve cannabis businesses. We have over 14,000 businesses that have registered on the platform. 9,000 plus are connected, and we're moving 1.8. We went over it for the month of July, $1.3 billion a month in sales deposits. So, you know, if you're a cannabis business and you're compliant and you have a license, there is absolutely no reason why you do not have a legitimate banking relationship today.
So
Now,
you don't have to have a safe full of cash in your dispensary if everything is on the up and up, Kevin. Is that what I'm hearing?
that is exactly what you're hearing. And please, for those folks that are still doing that, stop doing that.
I mean, I tell you what, it started that way, right? That's how it was 20 years ago. Colorado medical scene. I joke all the time that, they'd had medical on the books for many years, but like a bunch of, 20 somethings, me and my buddies from the Midwest all moved to Colorado. We heard about this thing on the books. We were like, wait, we all have headaches and bad knees. So let's go get cards. And then it turned into this whole thing. And so, yeah, I get where the fear, comes from. But I feel like we're in 2025, right? And I don't feel like it's that big of a deal as much as people make it out to be. But Kevin points out one big thing, folks, and this is what I need you to hear: legitimate, above board, running your operation as it is supposed to be run. You have opportunity to run through it. 1.3 billion in deposits, Kevin. Did I have it with a B correct, sir?
With a B per month.
With a B.
Yep. It goes up every month.
Can I clarify? Is this payroll, like back and forth? Is this people paying employees, paying their bills, whatever? Or do you just mean like through the POS? Give me some context to the 1.3.
That is straight sales deposits. So sales that are happening within the supply chain of cannabis. So it could be through the dispensary, manufacturer, supplier, extractor, cultivator, grower. Because of the way we built the platform, especially because we're still in this intra-commerce mode of operating, we wanted to make sure that the financial institutions didn't have in their mind the single point, of it's just a dispensary. No, you can bank all these accounts through the same platform because each one of them has their own set of rules by geography, by product type, by modality, et cetera. So we really focused on creating that complex rules engine, data-driven, that financial institutions can bank any licensed compliant cannabis business and know they're letting good money in and keeping the bad money out.
Because you become the source of truth, right?
Correct.
Your platform is where the money comes in and the money goes back out of. Sales deposits, right? So this is what we're talking about with the scared to have the girl go to the bank at the end of the night with all this cash on her and stuff, whatever. And it's also the reason, just so we're clear, while people always say they don't have money to pay their bills in cannabis, okay? Kevin is proving that you don't have money to pay your bills in cannabis because you're not either legit or doing things above board, because there are banking options. And obviously, Kevin, I don't have to tell you that the defaults in this industry are through the roof, and there are many reasons for that. But as you sit here, from that perspective, what do you see is a major missed opportunity for people in the supply chain who are maybe willfully or by accident not aware of what exists for them?
I think it boils down to operational excellence. Okay, so when you talk about the story, Sean, of when it came out and you went and you got your medical card and you were buying it. I mean, the product was moving at X per pound, and business model and the sell through was such that you had a lot of latitude and not necessarily price elasticity, but you had margin elasticity, and so people were not thinking about price compression, overproduction, et cetera. And so what is your price per pound purchase and sell through that you have to go through? in the entire context of operating a business. So, you can use the restaurant model or any other parallel, right? If you create a sandwich shop and you're gonna specialize in like a grilled cheese sandwich, okay? You can't, because the price of cheese goes, drops down to the bottom. You still can't put a sandwich out at $20.
Right.
People are going to understand that. And as more and more licenses have come on, shoppers have gotten a lot more sophisticated too, and they're looking at online pricing and everything else. So I think that total operational excellence and knowing your business and maximizing the opportunity of the transactions is critical. And when you're doing that, then you offer yourself that opportunity for merchant cash advance, equipment financing, everything else. And it all just flows through in proper money movement and fees. And so a lot of folks think, hey, well, this is great. I'm running my business and I'm making cash. The cost of cash is astronomical. Okay. It is wicked expensive. Cash is expensive. It's the most expensive way to operate. And people don't realize that. So you gotta think that through, and how your positive cash flow is then properly applied, not only from usage, but from visibility.
So this is what I love, Kevin, because these are business discussions that, in my experience, people in cannabis are they think it's such a different business than every other commodity I've ever sold in my life. Okay. I've been in the car business 25 years. There are so many parallels between cannabis and the car business outside of illegality. We can all agree to that. But other than that, how you run, like, price compression is a perfect example. Price compression now, because of Colorado first going on board in 13, 14, whatever it was, people saw it happen. We saw it happen in medical within 3 years of the boom. We were at 450. We were down to 250, on these ounce charges. Everything it all happened so quickly. So if you weren't paying attention, it's because you weren't paying attention. It's not because cannabis is a different business, right, Kevin? It's the same business. It's still about understanding. The other thing that states don't seem to understand, besides price compression, is that when neighboring states come on board, you are going to lose revenue. So, like, I live in prohibition state of Wisconsin. If it ever happens, I don't think there's a good chance in hell it does, but if it ever does, Illinois, Michigan, assume loss. Once you see it hit our books, you should be planning for a loss of revenue. Kevin, why do you think more aren't doing it? Why do you think more are acting like this is something unique to cannabis and not a business problem?
Well, I think there's the legacy operators and the folks that you talk about, and I'm a big believer in begin with the end in mind, and I think that's a healthy way to look at any sort of business that you're going to run. And you have to understand where those price compression points are in those commodity and your operating expense. And so as you put together your pro forma and you're looking at your business operation, what happens when additional license come in? What happens when the price point? Know where, again, that elasticity sits, et cetera. And then what's your stomach for that? And, because, if your revenue is going to increase, right, but your margin's going to decrease, okay, this is not the only line you have to pay attention to. This is the bottom line, is the one. That's why it's called the bottom, and so that's the one you have to pay attention to. So I just think that, in awareness of those sort of things. And I think also, to not to be long on the answer, I think operationally, people have to understand that inventory is the most expensive component of operating, unless you really signed a bad lease or something. So your inventory is your most expensive thing. And I think people are not paying enough attention to the purchasing patterns and and having awareness of what's going on. And you start looking at different brands and you think this one's hot, this is good. And then all of a sudden you get an offer. All right, I'm going to give you a 6-month guaranteed lock on my product, and I'm going to give you a 10% discount, and I'm going to make it easy for you. And we're going to finance it. We're going to finance it at 1.5%. So, I mean, just in general, we see on average dispensaries only, they're anywhere from 15 to 20% over inventoried. Okay. Bad move. And then you're financing on top of it. You're never going to climb out of that hole because the ladder keeps moving.
Right.
And so, you keep chasing at 1.5% per rung and you're moving up. So, it's that type of thinking that everybody's got to take that step back, but understand your market, understand the demographics, understand the ever-changing modality, understand the ever-changing margin compression, and stop thinking and hoping and waiting that either rescheduling is going to happen. So you're going to get 280E. Don't build a business plan waiting for the government. It's over then and there.
I would agree with you.
And or that financing rates are going to change so dramatically overnight.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's funny. So I'm thinking here this whole time while you're describing this, anyone who follows me may also know that I have an automotive podcast. And honestly, you could have paused and not known which podcast you were on of mine, because everything you just described is the car industry to a T, right? Inventory is your biggest expense. Flooring your inventory versus having cash inventory. All of these things are the same things I've been watching people. And let's be fair, the auto industry is 120 years old, and they still make the same fucking mistakes they made 120 years ago. So it's not really about learning a lesson, but what it's about is watching the lesson, seeing where it takes us. And it just, obviously it's a bad year for cannabis. It's a bad year for default. It's a bad year for all of that. But there's everyone. I would blame myself as an investor because I wasn't looking at the pitch deck that talked about price compression problems. I didn't ask those questions. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think I'm alone in that. Maybe I am, but I don't think I am.
No, you're not. Because look at the crazy money that went out there.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it was me and a bunch of my buddies who were like, hey, why don't we just go give Cannabis $1 million? Ha ha ha. Well, it's not really that funny anymore, is it? Because we all got in too late. I did the same thing with crypto. I literally got on a crypto platform. Within 3 months, it was bankrupt. I lost all my money. And I think to myself, I was late to the party. I don't want to be late to the party anymore. And cannabis businesses, you're getting already late to the party, and it's kind of your own fault. And I know I'm such a bad person for saying it. I know, but it's just a business. It just happens to sell weed, but it's still just a business that needs to consider all of these things. Kevin, when you sit back at GreenCheck and you start analyzing data and data points from the POS, what stands out to you about customer behavior, if anything, that you can see?
Well, there's still the very interesting thing, and this is kind of a generalization, but we're talking that way, is you still, when you go into a lot of dispensaries, et cetera, you don't know what products are and what product availability. The brand reputation and the visibility to the products has not taken hold. So if you're just going to use like a name, right, and you say Purple Haze, okay, there, go Jimi Hendrix, okay, just say Purple Haze. That is a different product in every store across the country, et cetera. But people go that that's what I want, and that's what my buddy told me I should get, et cetera. So it's not at that level yet, and it should be. And then a lot of times people will say, we don't have that, and then we don't have that, and then they're going to settle. So I think that, aside from product selection and product visibility within that environment, having knowledgeable staff is so crucial. And that tends to be a very transient, staffing position. God bless the operators that are trying to solve that problem. But, know your product, promote your product, but know your customers and understand the modalities that they're looking to consume products, because the trend lines in cannabis are happening so fast. It's like it's light speed, right? It's not the latest microbrew, right? That has a different cycle. Cannabis is it's working at such a high rate of speed as to what people are looking for. And they'll online shop, but when they go in the store, they're going to buy something. Service them. Make sure you're servicing them and understanding what they're looking for.
Just like any other brick and mortar retail business that I ever set foot in, I expect the same to be had. I love the points, Kevin. What I like about talking about consumers and consumer behavior, last week on the show, we had Michael Peterson, unbelievable young man, works at a dispensary up in Michigan. So smart, so sharp. And he was talking about similar things. He was talking about some of the way that brands do packaging, and there's waste in that. And you don't need this gigantic box. You don't need all these different things. And again, you from a business mind, which is the only way mind works, I think to myself, we use baggies for a reason, and it wasn't when we were trying to cut overhead. It just was the easiest way to show transparency of product, allow for a smell, and then an easy transport of sale. And I get it. We have to worry about children and all these locks on our shit and, whatever. Like, I get it. I do. But I don't want to act like it's something different, because it's not. It's just business, and it has to be done within regulations that your company accounts for. Is that how I understood that, Kevin? That if they're on your system, they themselves are players at the most legal, cleanest way possible. Is that fair?
Yes. Well, if they expect to get and maintain a bank account, because, again, the challenges for financial institutions, we've gotten over reputational risk, and we've gotten over, the money smells bad, et cetera, all those, early bugaboo statements that used to be out there. But, they need to know that they're working with somebody. And so first and foremost, the cannabis operator, they got their license. Most of them are not going to put that at risk by starting doing, shady business practices. There's just too much at risk. But, how does that financial institution know that they're selling the right product to the right people, and, at the right frequency and with the right concentrations, et cetera, in medical versus adult and all of that. So, we look at every single point of sale. We look at the seed to sale. We look at the product movement. We look at the inventory. We look at the financial operation, and we triangulate that information at the single transaction, at the single dollar level, because, nobody has to like this, right? But the way the banking structure is, and with the FinCEN guidance, and you have to file your suspicious activity reports and your currency transaction reports, and everybody's fighting hard to get those limits changed, but they're very draconian today, and they're so small. It just generates massive amount of paperwork and information for financial institutions, their risk. And then that has to run in line with their policies, their procedures, their risk assessments, their exit strategies, their liquidity requirements, their exit criteria, as then reviewed by independent people that come in and look at the banks, et cetera. So there's layers upon layers upon layers of review and definition. And you just have to stay in the guardrails. And when you do that, everything flows beautifully.
Fair to say your company is helping with the guardrails, because what you just described as an operator, I'd want to go put a blindfold on and play in traffic and hope I could cross the street. Is this the support that is offered when working with GreenCheck? Is that you are making sure that all of these things are being done, assuming that the cannabis industry business is doing their part?
It's exactly what we do. We sit in the middle, and we ingest that information from the cannabis operators. We know the rules and regulations for that product, that person, that type of business at that exact point in time. And then we give that information back to them. You're running a compliant business, or, we can find out that, Johnny's just constantly selling weed to the same guy, his buddy, and he's doing it at a weird price. You might not find those things out. Or, you have a license, and you only bought $1,000 worth of product, but you sold $100,000. Markup's not there, folks. So because you're selling your own weed, and that's what we vet and find out. So it's a balance point, because both sides want to work together. These industries do want to work together, but you have to be able to present that information and analyze it, and then extract it in such a way that both sides use it equally, and it gets pushed back to both. And then that's how the money flows freely and easily.
The statement of truth right here in cannabis, folks. GreenCheck. I'm telling you, you got to check these guys out. This sounds like a saver among savers. In the car business, we have all kinds of people in fintech that help with this, and they are immensely, immensely helpful in keeping all of the logistics correct, because we're car people. We're not banking people. You're cannabis people. You're not banking people. Let the banking people do banking. Let the cannabis people do cannabis. It sounds like GreenCheck allows everyone to do that, Kevin. And
exactly.
I love that. Kevin, we're coming to the end of the show. We're going to come up here. This is what we call the hot hit segment, brought to you by Green Lane Communication. If you are looking to be heard and seen and remembered in the cannabis industry, look no further than Green Lane Communication. They are absolutely the best at getting it done, and they go about it in a way that just makes sense. If you don't know them, go find them. The Hot Hits section is brought to you by them. Let's get started. Kevin, first question for you in Hot Hits. Rescheduling changes the world in banking, does nothing. Give us the hot hit take on what rescheduling does to banking.
It's going to open up interstate and international commerce, which is really going to change the operating model for the cannabis industry. It will allow 280E, which gives you that great buffer zone of profitability and write-off. So let's say that's 20%. But how much is interstate and international commerce going to affect that? And you really have to start thinking about that today. Okay, so rescheduling is not the silver bullet. It is not the panacea. 280E is not going to save a lot of businesses when you start having those additional modes of commerce occur. So it's going to be a balance point, and it's going to be very disruptive. And I think also layered onto that, you are guaranteed there's going to be more rules and regulations, not less. So
Yeah, I was gonna say,
better be ready.
Yeah, if you're hoping for your government to remove the red tape from your life, you have got the wrong government. That's just the reality of that. And again, this coming from a car kid, we got our own problems. We got our own things. You got all kinds of stuff that's going away here in the car business for EVs because of a governmental change or a governmental perspective. So just be careful putting your hopes in government. It's why I don't put a lot in the rescheduling. And I get a lot of people, well, you just don't care. You're just not an advocate. That isn't right. That isn't it. I just realize where advocacy helps and where it's just pissing in the wind. I prefer not to do it. So That's me. Kevin, fintech role in cannabis. Have we seen it to it? Is GreenCheck feel like that's they're where they can be? Is there more to be done in fintech and cannabis as GreenCheck sees it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think some of the super interesting thing, and we get to see a lot. I mean, it's not an infomercial. We're the leader in the space based upon how many FIs and cannabis business and the sheer amount of dollars that we see. And because of that, we also get to see how that money is moved, okay, from a bill pay, et cetera. And we all know those challenges. But, super, super interesting, again, not a political statement, but if you look at what the federal government's doing right now with stablecoin, come on, let's go. Let's get this moving, because if you start looking at stablecoin, you start looking peer-to-peer payments and what that's going to do, then you can obviate the big payment processors that are sitting out there now, and their rake and their take on how money moves all along. That's going to get interesting, and that's where that's another area where fintech sits in place. So the Visas and MasterCards of the world, okay, all of a sudden that price point, that compression, that margin on every single dollar is going to be massive.
It's funny you say that for two reasons. One, I was joking with someone the other day. I was like, because we all have payment processors for our credit cards, right? I'm like, well, wait, why don't we just get together, find a pool of $1 billion and just charge everyone 1%? And just be the company who just doesn't charge 3%. We just charge everyone 1%. And one of my buddies is like, dude, it's not that easy. Like, you can't just
it's not that easy. However, it's coming, and it will happen.
It feels that way. It feels momentum, because I feel like those numbers were bigger before. I mean, it feels like the Diners Club thing, for those of you old enough to know. It feels like a similar model, right, when you do that, Kevin. And the other thing that you just mentioned on the back half of that, with MasterCard, Visa, that part of it, not all. As I go to dispensaries because I live in a prohibition state. And I travel a lot. And so when I go into these places, they all say credit card on the door. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm all like, cool, I'm all jazzed up. I'm ready to rock in, slap down the credit card, and just go to town and get all the legal limits one can get. Which, by the way, legal limits are so stupid. You'd never tell a person they can only buy a 6-pack of beer at a liquor store every day. But let's just leave it alone. I get why it exists.
Yep.
But Kevin, none of these people actually take fucking credit card, dude.
They shouldn't be. They
all take debit card. And so they should say that on the door, because I am the money maker in my family, but I'm not allowed to have a debit card. And that's the wife's business to deal with. Yep. So I got $80, of cash in my pocket. So now my whole day is like bummed out because, these guys told me they take a credit card. Kevin, shouldn't they be a little bit more transparent, or is that me being a bitchy consumer?
I don't think so. They're doing what they can to get you in the door. And, and the cute answer is, if you look at your debit card, it's got a Visa or MasterCard logo on it. So they're saying, well, no, we take the logo, we don't take the method of payment. And, so that's one of the things that we always have to watch for is, what is that method of payment? And again, if you're taking credit cards, you're running afoul of the operating agreement. It's not against the law, it's the operating agreement, because there is no MCC code, okay, merchant code for cannabis. So if somebody is taking them, they're going to lose their bank account. They're going to lose a whole lot more.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, it used to be so squirrely back in Colorado in 2003, 2004, man. I mean, I'd be in a chiropractor's office, pay for my chiropractor, go in the back, grab an ounce, and it would all go on the same bill, paid on the same credit card. You know what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, like, I get it. And again, having be a legacy distributor myself, I never took credit cards, so it wasn't like you could do that either. All right, last question for you while we wrap it up. I'm a data nerd. I believe data is currency, and it is the best currency. How can cannabis operators get better at leveraging their data as Kevin sees it?
Know what it means, okay? And I think, and I'm going to pull that just a little bit farther. There are some people out there, and I'm not going to name one because then I'll forget the other, but there are some people out there that are doing some very, very interesting things with data. Know the latency of that data, okay? That's super critical. If it's 75 days old, like I said earlier, based upon the change and the frequency of change, I mean, that's a decade in cannabis years, years. And then the last thing that the cannabis industry needs, in my mind, is another set of charts and bar graphs and, trend lines. Give me actionable data. So it comes back to the timing and the latency of the data, and give it to me in a peer-to-peer analysis tied to my market. Okay. And so, very quickly, when we talk to somebody, I use the example of Toledo, Ohio all the time. You cannot go to a banker in Toledo, Ohio and say, oh, the cannabis industry is $100 billion. Zero context. You can't go to them and say it's $10 billion in Ohio. It isn't, but you can't say it's $10 billion. I can tell you it's $100 million in your community. That means something. Now, if bankers who are in the business of making money and only making money, if they think about cannabis that way and you're an operator, you have to think about it the same way too. Okay. What are the buying trends in Toledo, Ohio? What are people doing? And pay attention to, how the market is growing. It used to be 10% of the adult population in any state use cannabis on a regular monthly basis. I read an article 2 weeks ago, and I forget who it was, but it was a reputable source. In California, it said 37.1%. The market's exploding. It's growing like crazy. The consumption patterns are growing. Meet those customers where they are. Know what that is. So buy the right products, service them well, know your numbers, and run it like a business.
Man, I love it, Kevin. Shameless plug time for you, Kevin. Can GreenCheck, can you guys do everything you just described on the data side? Do you have the ability to get to the local? Can you be that true source of data for these dispensaries and businesses as described?
We can, or we'll point you in the right direction. We do not, enterprise software for 40 plus years. The best thing about anybody from a software company, if you're evaluating, is differentiation, relevance, and sustainability. Ask those questions, and if you can't get concise answers from the people that you're talking to, and that's up and down the stack here and the 40 plus people at GreenCheck, go talk to somebody else. But we can help you.
I love it. I am so fascinated by the discussion. I thank you so much for taking the time. On the way out, where can folks find you, Kevin, as well as GreenCheck, man?
www.greencheckverified.com. We're out there.
That's it. Kevin, you're on LinkedIn?
Yes, I am.
Great.
Kevin Hart, GreenCheck.
Great place to find conversations in the cannabis industry right now. Probably the safest place to have them. So, Kevin, thank you so much for your time. You've been absolutely wonderful and enlightening, and I could do it for another 30 minutes, man. Thank you so much.
Let's come back, Sean. Be good, man.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your week. And once again, thank you to Green Lane Communication for their sponsorship, for their trust, and for helping all cannabis businesses be seen, heard, and remembered. It can be a loud, loud place. You want to stand out, head over to greenlanecommunication.com. Kevin, thank you so much. Everyone, we'll see you again next week.
See you, Sean.
Thank you.